Hello there. Welcome to my channel, Candlelight Classics. Today, I'll be reading two short stories by the American authoress Elizabeth Bisland. She wrote her stories in the late 19th century and early 20th century. She was independent thinking, opinionated, and adventurous, certainly quite ahead of her time. There's no denying that Bisland was quite a character, which I think is reflected in the way she wrote and her musings on life and people. There is some biography on Bisland at the conclusion of my reading to provide you with a little idea of who she was. I hope you like these two short stories as much as I've loved reading them for you. You will see on my channel that I will be releasing a further reading of two other short stories by Bisland. I hope you'll listen to that one too. So sit back, relax, and enjoy her words. An eaten cake. The S's came in last night after dinner. They cling to the old fashion, common in England before the advent of afternoon tea, of having the tray brought in about 10 o'clock. So I tried it tonight because of them and found it not a bad idea. Simple, agreeable folk they are, of what is called in Scotland the middle classes. That is to say, they follow some commercial calling. I'm not sure of its exact nature. They are very well educated in just the way which differentiates the British middle-class education from the other sort. They speak several modern languages fluently and know little of the classics. All their learning is sound, unornamental, utilitarian. Some reference was made to a kinsman in a foreign town which I had visited. I could not recall any association with the name until the elder brother said quite simply and without any self-consciousness, "He is Jones, of Jones & Co., a large haberdasher in P. You may have been in his shop." It was nicely done. I doubt if an American could have achieved it in quite the same way. If he had made the confidence, it would have been made with bravado, or he would have explained that the shop was an emporium. The girl has such a good, restful British calm about her. I felt it after she was gone. It arises, I think, from lack of any special interest in the impression she makes upon others. All the rest of us, we Americans, were desirous of being agreeable, amusing, and making a good effect. We were consciously sympathetic, consciously vivacious, consciously civil. She was just herself. We might take her or leave her as she was. It never occurred to her to attempt to be different for our sakes. The result of it is very reposeful. One is always conscious of a sense of strain in American society for this reason. It is because of that desire to impress, to please, that American voices in conversation grow sharp and hurried, that Americans' faces grow keen and lined. We have a tradition that English women are dull and bovine, but no doubt they make the better mothers because of it. They hoard their energies to give to their sons. They bring their children into the world with deep reserves of strength. I have often observed the great superiority of English men over Americans in the capacity for long, sustained, unflinching labor. I am sure they owe that to the immense fund of unexhausted power given them by their mothers, who are profound wells of calm vitality. It is the old story of being unable to eat one's cake and have it too. American women eat their cake in the form of a higher exhilaration in existence. But when the drain of creation comes, they have nothing save nervous energy to give. The rest of the cake has already been devoured. There are no reserves for the child to call upon. I believe that Englishmen, without reasoning upon the matter, feel this instinctively. They vastly prefer their own women as mates. I have rarely known an Englishman to marry an American woman who had not the extrinsic attraction of wealth. They do not hesitate to marry penniless countrywomen of their own. A poet sheep rancher. Effie's dead, and with the announcement by cable this morning comes a belated letter from M, full of hope and encouragement. A sudden rally had made her believe in a possibility of recovery. No doubt it was that last flare which comes often just as the oil fails and the light is about to go out. My mind has been full of amazement all day. It is so difficult to realize that a strong, aggressive personality is finally and definitely extinguished. I have been thinking of their odd romantic story. He must have had great seductive power, not easily realizable now, to have come into her life and have persuaded her to abandon everything to follow him. I have heard her tell the story often. The tall young sheep rancher from New Zealand, with his burning eyes and his pockets full of sonnets, appearing one morning, and she suddenly abandons her beautiful position, her jointure, her 2 orphan boys, and goes away, despite the furious outcries of her family and friends, with a man 7 years her junior. Goes into the wilderness with him, New Zealand of more than a quarter of a century ago being decidedly wilderness. Yet she calls those the happiest years of her life, spent in a shanty 50 miles from the nearest neighbor. She likes to recall the wild scrambles among the mountains, the wrestles to save the sheep from the spring floods, the vigils, the dances to which they rode on mountain ponies 60 or 70 miles, the makeshifts, the caring for flocks and the shepherds in the stress of heat and cold, of sickness and sorrow, and the snow-bound nights beside the fire when the sonnets came to the fore again. After all, it was youth and love and adventure. Why shouldn't she have been happy? And she was justified in her faith. When I came to know them, the detrimental young sheep rancher moved in a world of gilded aides-de-camp, with sentries and mountain escorts attending his steps, surrounded by tropical pomp and spacious luxury. And now, alas, he is but one more unit in the yearly tribute of flesh and blood demanded by England's equatorial empire. A handsome, brilliant, charming creature, The generation is the poorer for the loss of his graceful, cynical wit. He belonged to the generation who formed their ideals of manners upon Pelham and Vivian Grey. It was Byronism translated into prose. M says he bore his sufferings, enormous sufferings, with the light and humorous courage with which it was the ideal of the fine gentleman of his period to face all unpleasant situations.